Go Went Gone is a 2015 novel by the German author Jenny Erpenbeck. Erpenbeck was born in East Berlin in 1967 and went on to study music theatre before becoming an opera director. She didn't start writing professionally until after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1990, claiming she was motivated by the end of the system in which she'd grown up. She published her first novel, Visitation, in 2008. A second, The End of Days, went on to win the Independent Foreign Fiction Prize. Go Went Gone was her third. It's based on real events in Berlin between 2012 and 2014, and it's about a just retired professor of classical literature called Richard, who tries to support a group of African refugees whom he originally encounters at a makeshift camp at Oranienplatz, before they're moved by the authorities to a secure building pending the official consideration of their right to asylum. The book's title comes from the refugees' attempts to learn the German language. One of them has conjugations of the verb to go on his wall. Richard, the protagonist, is quiet and set in his ways. His wife died recently, but he was also having an affair, and his lover left him. He has a close circle of upper-middle-class friends, most of whom he's known for decades, and with whom he dines and goes for walks. He lives by a lake in which someone recently drowned, and whose body was never recovered, and with whose death he's mildly obsessed, probably because there's so little else going on in his life. The interest of the novel comes from seeing Richard drawn from his fustiness by a growing compassion and a felt need to help. The author's clearly on the side of the refugees, and there's a strong sense throughout that the German authorities are acting with something like mingled xenophobia and racism. Richard, as a former East Berliner and a child of World War II, thinks he can perceive that in a way that others perhaps can't. Could the long years of peacetime, he asks himself at one point, be to blame for the fact that a new generation of politicians now apparently believes we've arrived at the end of history, making it possible to use violence to suppress all further movement and change? Or have the people living here under untroubled circumstances and at so great a distance from the wars of others been afflicted with a poverty of experience? Go Went Gone tackles what can be an emotive topic, but it's unlikely to divide readers, if only because it doesn't go very deep. In terms of its polemical thrust, it seems to be mainly asking for more compassion from the authorities. It's highly critical of official attempts to hide behind the letter of the law, which it rightly sees as a kind of moral cowardice. In summary, it's a good novel and its heart's definitely in the right place, but it's not a great one. His biggest problem is the protagonist, Richard, who comes across as rather wishy-washy. My guess is that the author was so concerned to foreground the refugees' stories, the acknowledgement section expresses her gratitude to 13 men with names that strongly resemble those of the Africans in the story, that Richard's been slightly neglected. We don't really get a convincing sense of why he feels the need to find out about the refugees in the first place. And more generally, he doesn't seem particularly intelligent. He writes a list of questions to ask the refugees, but it doesn't seem to occur to him to go on the internet to get a sense of what to expect. And when he simply turns up at the refugees' building with that list, he's rather taken aback by the suggestion that since he could be anyone at all, he should have made an appointment. Strangely, the authorities let him in anyway. But then, that's just my opinion. Other readers might warm to Richard. The last few pages might make that a little more difficult, but well, that's my opinion again. Enough of me.